We're gonna wait a couple of minutes until more people are connected, and then we're gonna go live, okay?
Perfect.
Bueno, muy buenos días. Quiero darles la bienvenida a este segundo día del Foro Mundial de Ciudades Bajas en Carbono. Es un placer estar acá conversando con ustedes, conversando sobre estos temas tan importantes que tenemos para discutir en un momento tan especial que lo también pues como para nuestra historia. Sabemos que estamos enfrentando pues como estas opciones de crear un nuevo mundo casi, por lo menos eso es lo que nos estamos planteando, una nueva normalidad, y estas discusiones entonces son más vigentes que nunca. ¿Qué va a ser esa nueva normalidad que construyamos, esa nueva realidad que queremos ver? Mi nombre es Alejandro Álvarez, yo soy profesor de la Universidad EAFIT, coordino el área de cultura ambiental en esta institución. Hago parte del equipo de Low Carbon City con mucho orgullo, ya en estos casi 6 años que llevamos trabajando pues desde que surgió la idea, y este es un foro muy especial porque estamos celebrando entonces pues 5 años como organización, ahorita digo 6 porque desde antes se venía gestando la idea, y digamos el anhelo de contar con un espacio donde pudiéramos realmente educar y movilizar para combatir la crisis climática que enfrentamos en todo el mundo. Este sueño nació por allá en Medellín, nació en el 2015, se consolidó, se empezó a consolidar en el 2016 y ha movilizado más de 80.000 personas para la acción climática en todo el mundo. Recuerden pues, este foro es un foro internacional, tenemos entonces, vamos a estar cambiando entre inglés y español. Las personas que nos acompañan en Zoom pueden encontrar en la parte inferior de el panel o de la pantalla la opción, hay un planetica que nos recuerda también el cuidado del mundo para también entender en estos otros idiomas. Voy a hacer una pequeña introducción en inglés también. So, good morning, welcome to our second day in the Low Carbon City Forum. My name is Alejandro Álvarez, I'm professor in Universidad EAFIT here in Medellín, Colombia. I'm also part of the team of Low Carbon City, very proudly member of the team since its beginnings. This is a very special initiative, I think, because it emerged really from citizens that were worried about the climate crisis back then. And today we see that it is much more relevant against the background of these crises that we are going through. And I think it is sort of a reminder that we really need to change our course and change the way we are doing things in order to really achieve sustainable societies. We are celebrating 5 years as a citizen-led organization, and we have been educating and mobilizing people, empowering people to fight the climate crisis, to come up with creative solutions, with ideas, with collaborative work, that really allows us to tackle these challenges that we are facing nowadays. So this dream started in 2015 and then began to materialize in 2016. And we have mobilized more than 80,000 citizens to fight the climate change and other sustainability challenges and address other sustainability challenges. So as this is an international forum, we're going to have translation. So if you are on the Zoom platform, at the bottom of the screen, you're going to find a little planet. I was saying before that it also should remind us of our need to take care of our common home. So you can just choose there and choose language that is best for you. Volviendo a español, pues quiero contextualizar un poco más, decir que este foro busca conectar también muchos sectores. Hablamos de ciudadanía, de representantes del sector público, la academia, que tiene también una responsabilidad muy grande, los empresarios y el sector privado, medios de comunicación y distintas lideresas y líderes de las ciudades también. La idea es entonces que reconozcamos que eso es un reto que no podemos resolver de manera aislada, que tenemos que trabajar de manera conjunta para crear esas soluciones y desarrollar proyectos concretos que nos ayuden pues a combatir la crisis climática y, como decía ahora, también a superar muchos otros retos de sostenibilidad. No es un asunto que se pueda hacer desde una sola esquina, necesitamos trabajar de manera conjunta y ese ha sido nuestro propósito también en la Fundación Low Carbon City. Hemos reunido a más de 10.000 personas en 50 países en las 4 versiones anteriores de este foro que se llevó a cabo pues, en México, en Francia, en Costa Rica y en Colombia en su primera versión. Este año tenemos también, digamos, un momento especial. Somos parte de la Semana Mundial liderada por The Climate Group en Nueva York y tenemos más de 350 eventos, digamos, en esta oferta de Climate Group en esta Semana Mundial del Clima. También conectando personas y organizaciones para construir un mejor futuro, empezando por un mejor presente. Esto no se crea solo, estos foros no se organizan de manera espontánea, hay muchos aliados que tenemos que contar acá. Vamos a ir rápidamente para hacer algunos agradecimientos. Hay que apoyar también los esfuerzos para buscar ser neutrales en nuestras emisiones, y por eso queremos agradecer también a Incyclo, que nos ha ayudado también pues a tratar de que este evento sea carbono neutro. Sabemos que a pesar de que estemos en la virtualidad tenemos ese impacto, entonces gracias Incyclo. Y también hay que agradecer a otras personas que hicieron posible este evento, pues el equipo que ha organizado esto, el equipo de Low Carbon City, mujeres muy dedicadas, muy valientes, muy disciplinadas, con mucho conocimiento, que han hecho posible que estemos conversando hoy. A Valentina Mondragón, a Adriana Calla, a Alejandra Uribe y a Juliana Gutiérrez, pues nuestra directora, que se ha puesto en sus hombros pues esta labor titánica de mantener siempre a Low Carbon City activo para poder luchar por lo que realmente creemos pues que debemos hacer. Aliados estratégicos al Servicio de Intercambio Alemán, el DAAD, a la Universidad Técnica de Berlín, a Urban Oasis, a COMFAMA, Proantioquia, Sistemas Inteligentes en Red, Ruta N, CORANTIOQUIA, y bueno, otros amigos y voluntarios que han estado siempre acompañando este sueño pues de las ciudades bajas en carbono. El evento es interactivo. Queremos entonces también acompañar todo lo que ocurre también acá con sus visiones, sus perspectivas que ustedes podrán tener. No sé si lo podemos proyectar en pantalla en este momento. El enlace lo voy a deletrear de todas maneras, es bit.ly/lccwf interact. bit.ly/Low Carbon City World Forum, las iniciales LCCWF Interact. El foro está dividido en 8 sesiones. Ayer tuvimos las 2 primeras, hablamos sobre Slow Cities y salud planetaria, esas grandes visiones que tenemos entonces también de conectar muchas cosas que parecen aparentemente aisladas, que la salud va por un lado, la salud humana y la del planeta por el otro, cuando realmente pues vivimos en un mundo absolutamente interconectado y somos parte de esto. Y quienes no pudieron acompañarnos pueden encontrar las grabaciones en la página web del foro. Hoy vamos a hablar sobre temas muy interesantes de economía circular y tecnologías de frontera. Mañana estaremos con sesiones de desarrollo regenerativo y vamos a tener las voces de los niños, esa voz que nos recuerda pues que bajo ninguna circunstancia podemos seguir hipotecando o colonizando su futuro. Y el viernes hablaremos de resiliencia y recuperación post-COVID. Finalizaremos con la sesión de ciudadanía transformadora. Para continuar con nuestra agenda, yo le quiero dar la bienvenida a María Luisa Zapata, quien va a presentar la sesión de economía circular. Como vamos a hablar en inglés, María Luisa, te voy a presentar en inglés. María Luisa is Head of Social Management and International Affairs at COMFAMA, a private company in the social sector with the purpose to consolidate Antioquia's middle class through services of health, education, finances, wellness, culture, and entrepreneurship. Her role includes consolidating COMFAMA as a platform for conscious business promotion in Antioquia. Maria Luisa is an international business negotiator from EAFIT University, so we are colleagues, Maria Luisa. Well, I'm not a business negotiator, but we are colleagues anyway, and Magister in Management of Innovation and Knowledge from the same school. Her experience in both the public sector and the private sector structuring international strategies to generate social impact and economic development through international cooperation, knowledge exchange, and foreign direct investment. She is passionate about urban development, social impact, and social innovation, and that's why she's here with us. And I'm very glad that you're going to be here moderating this panel because you have a lot of input to give us. So welcome, Maria Luisa.
Alejandro, thank you very much for your introductions. And most of all, congratulations on the work and the contributions that you guys are doing from low carbon. It's your 6th year in this contribution to the World Forum. And I admire profoundly the job, the work that you are doing, and the women in the team, what they are doing. I admire Juliana, Valentina, the rest of the team. So it's a pleasure that to be here, to be able to contribute. And I want to salute briefly, in the meantime, Shri, Marcela, and John, who will be the principal panelists today. And we are, I'm very honored to be able to share with them this morning session. And I feel like I have to introduce something that brings a lot of joy to me, to what I'm doing and what I feel. And I feel like the contribution also of linking what I do and the role that I have at COMFAMA as the head of social management is very linked, and we have found connections with circular economy. We've discussed them previously a couple of months ago with Juliana from Low Carbon as well. And it's because from my role, we are constantly promoting the conscious capitalism as the way in which companies need to interact and get involved to generate a positive impact on people, on nature, and society in general, and also being able to generate a good economic outcome as well, which is necessary for the growth of companies in the meantime. And we have found that many of these discussions, of course, need to be materialized through different systemic solutions that really need to bring opportunities to the company leaders and to the entrepreneurs and to the people behind the new dynamics of economic and social development, an option to really generate different possibilities to contribute and not having to choose between economy or nature. I mean, that's no longer a question. That's we feel like being conscious means really taking care of everyone and everything that is around you. And with this concept, I want to link that the possibility, we want to promote and we insist on the fact that companies need to be working and organizations need to be working on the concept of healing, really being having a leading role in healing and addressing that which is affecting our planet, which is affecting the people. And I feel I was very honored then to be invited to talk with you this morning, because we have a reflection on how circular economy can, of course, bring solutions and ideas to the different companies and company leaders whom we work with to be able to address their businesses different. And of course, having understanding circular economy as an objective to really limit the extraction and to understand the limit that we have on natural resources, and to understand that we need to be have a more systemic approach towards the production and change the economy of just producing and disposing into an economy of doing, redoing, using and reusing through the cycles, the closed cycles, which really address and simulate how economy needs to work in terms of being inspired on how nature works as well. So we feel like this is really one of the contributions in which companies who want to be more conscious and who really want to generate a positive impact on our planet today need to address and really bring different aspects on materials, innovation, resilience, but also in terms of connecting, generating different connections in their territory. And hopefully this is something that we'll be able to address in the objective of this planet, to really promote in this conversation the importance of having these circular solutions based on the natural cycles in order to transform the traditional economy into a wasteless economy, and to better understand the impact of the systemic change on society and the environment. So to do so, we have here three wonderful guests, and I'm going to introduce each one of you. And the panel, and later on, I will give you 10 minutes, a 10-minute session for each of you to present your work, your contributions. And once we are all finished with these sessions, we'll gather together for a conversation and to address some further questions. So with no further introductions, I'm going to present each and every one of you. So I have, I'm going to start in the order we have from the panel. And first of all, I want to introduce Sri Tripandi from India. Sri is founder of Structure Eco, the first company in India to make homes and schools using compressed agri-fiber panels, which is 100% green building material. Her initiative stops crop stubble burning, which is the leading cause of air pollution in North India. The company promotes a circular economy business model in the construction industry, one of the biggest emitters of GHGs in the world. She has a master's in construction management from New York University and BTech in civil engineering. She is a TEDx speaker, United Nations Social Impact Challenge Award winner in August 2018 in New York City. And the first pilot house built by Structure Eco won the Green Building Project Award by Smart Cities Expo in New Delhi back in June 2019. And Structure Eco is in Bangalore, Banastali University and Selco Foundation. Sri is also an Acumen and Echoing Green 2020 Fellow. It's good to have you here, Sri.
Thank you. Thanks, Maria.
Also, we're going to be speaking today with Marcela Godoy from Chile. She's the co-founder of Ecodiseño.cl, a pioneer company in the use and promotion of eco-design in Chile. She's currently the Director of Sustainability at STGO Slow, a consultancy specialist in eco-design, marketing, and sustainable consumption, and the President of the Association of Sustainable Consumers of Chile, ADC Circular. She has more than a decade of experience working with product and services companies of different areas, both in the public and private sector. She teaches in various higher education centers, conducts workshops, talks, and coaching processes in sustainable lifestyles. She also executes projects with local communities in the field of participatory design, change management, and goal facilitation. Industrial designer, specialist in management of the sustainability of production and consumption systems. Welcome, Marcela.
Muchas gracias.
Okay, and last but not least, we have John Johnson from the USA. John Johnson is the co-founder of the Inner City Green Team, a die-hard environmentalist and social justice advocate. John came to his work as a recycling coordinator at Grow NYC, where he has been working for over 10 years to improve recycling rates in New York City. While at Grow New York City, he has selected as an emerging leader by the Bank of America and participated in its Neighborhood Builders Leadership Training Program. This highly competitive program is designed to recognize and reward nonprofit organizations and individuals who are achieving excellence in their community building efforts. John's passion and desire to protect the planet and some of its most vulnerable citizens has led him and his partner on this journey to create ICGT. In 2018, they launched their pilot project, having won the New York City X Collab X Challenge, Zero Waste in Shared Space. This was an international competition seeking solutions that would improve recycling in New York public housing. John studied urban studies at Macalester College and urban policy analysis and management at the New School for Social Research. John is a 2020 Echoing Green Fellow as well. So it's a pleasure to have you all here. Hello, John. Okay, perfect.
Hello, how are you?
Well, doing
Glad
great,
to be
thank
here.
you. It's gonna be an interesting morning. So
Absolutely.
I'm going to introduce Sri, and I'm gonna give you your time to present and share with us your project and your contributions. Thank you, Sri.
So should I go ahead and share my screen? Should I do
Sure,
that?
please do.
Okay.
Yes.
Is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes,
Is it okay?
it's on.
Great.
Go ahead.
Okay, great. Okay, so good morning, everyone who's on the Western Hemisphere, and good evening to everyone who's on my side of the world, which is Eastern. So Structure Eco is a green building product company, and our vision is to reduce 50% of the embodied carbon that is emitted due to the construction sector in India in next 30 years. Now, why is this a problem that needs to be solved? Globally, if we look at the chart on the slide, almost 40% of the global carbon dioxide emission happens because of the construction sector, which has two components. One is the material and another is the operational energy that goes into the buildings that we embody and that we live in. Now, currently, 11% of the building materials contribute to the carbon dioxide emission, but by 2050, this number is going to double itself. And not only that, the problem with embodied carbon is that you can only reduce it at the initial stage, at the design stage. Once the building is designed and the materials are used into building the structure, there's nothing that we can do to reduce the carbon emission. Unlike operational energy, where we have an opportunity where, let's say, living 10 years into a house, we think we want to move to the renewable and clean energy, and we put solar on our roof. We can still reduce our operational carbon, but not embodied, which means that if we really want to make a dent in the global emission of carbon and the climate change, it's essential that embodied carbon is addressed. Now, what Structure Eco does is we identified a waste in India, which is 100% untapped resource. In India, every year, more than 40 metric tons of straw of all kinds is burned because it has no usage. There is no requirement. And even after consuming that straw as a fodder for animals, there's so much of it left that the farmer has no option but to just burn it on their land. Now, when a farmer does that, that leads to air pollution. And that straw is our asset. That waste is what we are reusing and upcycling into a green building material. We make high-density compressed panels that are moisture-proof, fire-proof, and is a green alternative to drywalls, plasterboards, gypsum, cement, and bricks in a building. Along with these panels, we use steel frames. Now, just to give you a context, in a country like India, 90% of the buildings are made using clay-burned bricks and concrete, both of which are highly carbon-intensive materials. Now, steel at the same time is also a carbon-intensive material. It does emit carbon dioxide in its life cycle, but the opportunity lies in recycling it, because the way we use steel is that we make modular frames out of it, and that frame can be dismantled and recycled after the life cycle of the building is over. So overall, the panels and the frame give us an opportunity to move construction towards a circular economy principle. In India, currently, 2% of the buildings are green, which means out of more than $800 billion market in India in next decade, only 2% is green. That means there's a huge untapped resource lying around that creates a great market for not us, but multiple other entrepreneurs to enter and make a dent. In India, again, as compared to the Western market, only 20% of the buildings are built using drywall technique, which is important to highlight because India is one of those countries that's going to soon face a huge water crisis problem. And if 80% of our current buildings are made using wet technique, using cement and concrete, soon there's going to be a challenge how and where to use water because we won't have enough of it. So the 20% of the drywall market needs to be expanded, and not only by the current option, but a sustainable option, which is a biocomposite biomaterial. In India, the furniture market is also a huge market, but unlike Europe, Canada, and US, we import most of our wood because India does not have that many forests that can be commercially cut to make furniture, which means while at one place we have 40 metric ton of straw lying untapped, burnt, we are importing wood and increasing our deficit to make furniture. So as you can see, there's demand, there's a supply, and there's an opportunity to reduce the circularity gap. This slide is the picture of two projects that we have done. The first is a small house, a very small house, less than 30 square meter, built in India in two years back. It was the first model or a prototype, you can say, using these biocomposite panels. And another photo right beside it is a building that we finished 2 months back, which is a hospital for COVID relief, the first green COVID hospital built in India in less than 2 months, and it is a 50-bed facility for COVID patients in an area where there is no health infrastructure currently. The next slide is pictures of furniture. They look simple, but the point is that each of those tables and chairs are built out of our agri-fiber biocomposite panels, and every square meter of that panel stores 30 kg carbon dioxide. So every time you build your chair, you build your furniture, you build your home, you're storing carbon, you're not emitting it. Now, we are not just saying that our solution is a sustainable solution. It is actually a far more superior and a durable solution when it comes to its properties as well. Now, often when we talk about straw, the first thing our customers ask us is, how can you say this is a durable product when it is burnt? That means there's problem, that it's not fireproof. But on contrary, our panels are far more fireproof than any other alternative. And the reasoning lies in one of the components in the straw, which is silica, which is one of the best fire retardant material available naturally. So when we compress our panels, there is no scope for combustion. And at the same time, silica, because of the heat and the pressure, creates a layering on the straw, which makes it fire retardant. So even our furniture, which is made of the lightest density of all the options of our product that we have, is even fireproof, which is a great requirement currently when we are seeing so many accidents and incidences happening around fire. Lastly, the reason we are here is the business model, it's the value chain. So while, as Maria said, that the linear model is of take, make, dispose, the circular model is of reducing, reusing, and recycling. Every time a farmer in India grows wheat, rice, sugarcane, bagasse, which are three of the biggest staple crops grown in India, and we're also one of the top 3 global producers, there is equal amount of byproduct in terms of its fiber that is available. And that fiber is collected by a manufacturer, converted into a green panel that is later bought by a company like Structure Eco and turned into a building material, added value to it, and that creates green jobs and greener buildings. In last 1 year itself, we have stored 150 metric ton of carbon dioxide by the amount of projects and products that we have made, ranging from furniture, wall, to a complete hospital. And in the next 4 years, our aim is to store enough carbon that is equivalent to planting 20,000 trees in India. This slide is my favorite slide because this slide shows the opportunity not just in India, but on a global level. So it has 4 pictures, one of a wheat board, rice husk, hemp panels, and bagasse, which means that if we look at the global map out there, there is literally at least one fiber in every part of the world, in every continent, that can be reused, recycled, or upcycled into a building material based on its chemical and physical properties. And globally, there's an opportunity to substitute 40% of our building material by a biomaterial and promoting the bio loop. Thank you.
Thank you, Shutri. It's impressive, the work that you're doing, and to take into account that your contributions are being addressed one of the most traditional sectors of the economy as well. Feels like quite a challenge in which you are mobilizing and really inspiring others with your work. And hopefully we'll have a little bit more time to discuss that and how systemically this has been changing in India and what the most challenges are for your contributions and your work in your country. So thank you again for your presentation. I'm going to give the word to Marcela, who will now be sharing with us her contributions and her ideas. You have, Marcela, 10 more minutes as well to discuss, and then we'll go on with our panel. Bienvenida.
Muy bien. Presento mi pantalla.
Por favor.
Hola, buenos días. Estoy muy contenta por la invitación. Mi nombre es Marcela Godoy, tal como comentó María Luisa, yo soy directora de sustentabilidad. En Chile hablamos del concepto de sustentabilidad principalmente, por eso lo van a escuchar más seguido en mi presentación. De Santiago Slow. Santiago Slow es un laboratorio de tendencias en sustentabilidad, somos especialistas en este tema, y fue creado por mí y por mi socia que se llama Carola Moya, en donde yo, con mi background que venía, tal como mencionaste, desde el mundo del ecodiseño, la economía circular y temáticas principalmente centradas en el ámbito de la producción en términos de medio ambiente, y Carola viene del mundo de la comunicación y el marketing, que ya venía trabajando en un concepto de laboratorio de tendencia, y es por eso que finalmente creamos esta consultora que principalmente se enfoca en la interconexión sistémica de los sistemas de consumo y producción. ¿Ya? Finalmente eso es lo que nos dimos cuenta, de los cuales veníamos trabajando nosotras, y nuestro background principal se centraba en cómo se conecta la economía en términos de las actividades que realizamos como ciudadanía, humanidad, ¿no es cierto? Y vamos generando estos impactos dentro de, por supuesto, el principal, que es la crisis climática en la cual nos encontramos actualmente. Entonces, uniendo nuestros conocimientos, nos dimos cuenta que desde el mundo de la producción, obviamente con el paraguas de la sustentabilidad, interconectado con la economía circular, podíamos realizar proyectos en el ámbito del ecodiseño, comunicación sustentable y diseño circular relacionado con la economía circular para las empresas. Y por otro lado, desde el mundo del consumo y estilos de vida, porque pasaba también que las dos teníamos un estilo de vida sustentable, lo cual es bastante curioso, porque en el ámbito de la sustentabilidad eso no pasa generalmente en el mundo profesional. Y desarrollamos, ¿no es cierto?, todo un área que tiene que ver con el estudio, educación, ¿no es cierto?, para estilos de vida sustentables, consumo circular, que es un concepto que desarrollamos en el Santiago Slow, que habla de cuáles son las acciones que podemos realizar, cuál es nuestro rol como consumidores o ciudadanos y ciudadanas para que la economía circular sea posible. Y en el ámbito también que trabajamos bastante es en el cambios de conducta o cambios culturales, que nos piden bastante de parte de las organizaciones para generar cambios hacia estilos de vida sustentables dentro de las organizaciones. Entonces, Santiago Slow es una consultora que nos especializamos, como les comenté, en sustentabilidad y en todos los temas que les comenté, pero principalmente las áreas o las acciones que realizamos es investigación, formación, prestamos asesorías y conectamos a las empresas con las cuales trabajamos y colaboramos. En el ámbito de la investigación, generamos una serie de reportes, estamos constantemente generando reportes de tendencia, que es básicamente lo que también nos especializamos, que tiene que ver con la investigación, en donde siempre planteamos posibles escenarios futuros con respecto, obviamente, con la situación que estamos viviendo desde el año pasado, ¿no es cierto?, 2019, que en Chile sobre todo fue muy marcado por un estallido social que cambió completamente la realidad en la cual estábamos viviendo. Entonces, relacionado también luego con el coronavirus, se ha generado, digamos, un contexto actual bastante interesante y que ha obligado a cambiar tanto a las empresas, al Estado, ¿no es cierto?, también, y a la ciudadanía en este nuevo contexto. También rescatamos nuestro know-how que teníamos. Yo soy especialista en ecodiseño, como comenté, el ecodiseño tradicional basado en la ISO 14006, que es una norma que ayuda a las empresas a generar productos y servicios de mínimo impacto ambiental con enfoque de ciclo de vida, ¿ya? Y Carola, que es especialista en marketing, venía trabajando en el ámbito del marketing 3.0 o marketing valórico, que finalmente eso fue lo que nos dimos cuenta que era lo que le faltaba al ecodiseño tradicional para que finalmente las empresas lo introdujeran dentro de sus procesos y las personas, la ciudadanía, entendiera de qué se tratara y pudiera tener herramientas en el momento de escoger un producto, tomar decisiones de consumo en su vida diaria, ¿ya? Y desarrollamos esta metodología que se llama Ecodiseño 3.0, en la cual mezclamos e intersectamos, que conectamos, digamos, estas dos visiones para poder generar productos mucho más competitivos dentro de la industria y obviamente mucho más sustentables, con enfoque en la economía circular, por supuesto. Entonces acá también les voy a mostrar un pequeño video, porque la otra área en la que trabajamos, que es el desarrollo de experiencias educativas, porque desarrollamos bastante educación y capacitaciones, pero no es con una mirada en el aula, ¿ya? Sino que todas las acciones o todas las actividades que hacemos en el ámbito de la educación tienen que ver con experiencia. Entonces lo que hacemos es diseñar experiencias educativas. Así se escucha el audio.
La verdad es que son muchas cosas, es un bombardeo de información, pero que en la medida que uno va aprendiendo también la puede ir procesando un poco más rápido.
Hoy en día en Chile sí hay voces expertas en temas de sustentabilidad, circularidad, son ellas, así que por eso estamos acá.
Estamos haciendo unas bolitas saludables con alimentos naturales y la idea es que sea una receta súper fácil de hacer y también revisamos qué hacer con el residuo orgánico que pueden transformarla en compost.
Los resultados nos permitieron ver dónde estábamos parados, dónde queremos llegar y que los niños puedan compartir toda esta información en sus hogares.
Yo estoy feliz de haber participado de este proyecto, encuentro que es algo súper increíble.
Entonces, como les comentaba, nosotros lo que hacemos es diseñar experiencias de aprendizaje y lo desarrollamos para diferentes organizaciones. Y aquí principalmente lo hemos hecho para Circular, que es la Asociación de Consumidores Sustentables, de la cual somos parte del directorio. Y creamos la Academia Circular, en donde formamos agentes de cambio en estilos de vida sustentable, que son personas que están ahí disparadas enseñando sobre, cambiando el mundo en términos de estilo de vida. Con respecto a otros temas que realizamos, tiene que ver con lo que comentabas un poco tú, María Luisa, hace un momento, de cómo vamos cambiando en este nuevo contexto los territorios, ¿cierto? Cómo va a migrar todos los modos de consumir y de producir hacia un modo más local, ¿ya? Entonces aquí también tenemos programas en los cuales desarrollamos a nivel territorial, que tienen impacto, ¿no es cierto?, en mejorar la calidad de vida, el medio ambiente, ¿no es cierto?, y fomentar el desarrollo económico local, en lo cual trabajamos diferentes espacios, ¿no es cierto?, como pueden ver la gestión de residuos, el tema de la larguescencia, la economía colaborativa, el consumo local, los espacios colaborativos, ¿no?, o comunitarios, y por supuesto la alimentación. Estas son como las áreas en las cuales nos desarrollamos a nivel territorial. Para terminar, me gustaría comentarles sobre los últimos insights que hemos desarrollado un poco para poder dejarlo acá en la presentación y podamos conversarlo. Es un poco cómo ha cambiado, ¿no es cierto?, nuestra realidad con el coronavirus, ¿no es cierto?, que desde el punto de vista de la producción ha generado que, y las proyecciones van para allá, que las grandes empresas o las grandes industrias van a empezar a migrar, ¿no es cierto?, a diversificar sus cadenas de suministro, ¿no es cierto?, sus talleres y retirarlos un poco y dejar de ser tan dependientes de China, ¿no es cierto?, porque hay que tener súper claro que como coronavirus es una consecuencia del cambio climático, ¿no es cierto? Es el inicio, digamos, de los próximos, probablemente, pandemias que puedan venir, y para eso debemos estar preparados. Con respecto a los cambios de hábitos de consumo, también se ve muy explícito Aquí tenemos una frase de un especialista de Google que dice que en los últimos 90 días, y eso que este dato es de mayo, dice que aumentaron las búsquedas por estilos de vida sustentable en 4.550%. Eso indica que, claro, que está cambiando la tendencia y obviamente el retail ya también está proyectando que el mercado de consumidores que ya estaban cautivos que de preferencias de consumo consciente va a aumentar ahora debido a que todo el mundo ya va a migrar un poco a el consumo local, ¿ya? Y esto se relaciona principalmente con la desescalada que se está haciendo con la fase 1, 2 y 3, ¿no es cierto?, en donde tenemos poco tiempo para salir y movilizarnos y se está implementando, y eso ha hecho que se está implementando un poco más estas estrategias de los 15 minutos, ¿no es cierto?, en donde tenemos que tener acceso a comprar y acceder y abastecernos digamos, en circuitos bastante pequeños para poder lograr hacerlo. Y bueno, y esto va a implicar, ¿no es cierto?, las nuevas formas de consumo y el regreso a una economía local. Ya aquí yo les dejo un regalo de nosotras, que son los insights de los nuevos valores, cómo han cambiado los hábitos de consumo. Esto es muy importante para las empresas, para los emprendimientos, para los startups, ¿no es cierto?, que quieran empezar a meterse en este tema. Tener súper claro que existen ciertos valores del ámbito social, medioambientales, económicos que hay que considerar en el contexto actual, ¿no es cierto?, en donde en el ámbito social las empresas tienen que empatizar con las personas, ¿no es cierto?, ponerse en el lugar de las personas, pensar en relatos, en ser transparentes, en mostrar la trazabilidad de sus productos, etcétera, que también tienen que considerar lo que es la justicia social en el ámbito de las prácticas laborales, por ejemplo. Eso también ha salido mucho ahora en el ámbito del coronavirus, cómo se han comportado las empresas con sus trabajadores, y también con el tema de la equidad y la igualdad, sobre todo en el tema de género. Desde el punto de vista medioambiental, las personas cada vez están mostrando un interés, ¿no es cierto?, en el impacto que presentan los productos, independiente que exista hasta ahora una visión, como por ejemplo en el tipo de material, una demonización con el plástico. Las personas ya están empezando a pensar en qué están consumiendo, ¿no es cierto? Por ejemplo, aquí en Chile, un dato, ha aumentado notablemente la venta de composteras. Ya la gente está empezando a hacer vermicompostaje y compostaje en sus casas, principalmente porque se encontraron con la problemática del residuo en sus casas en este confinamiento. Y la economía circular obviamente está mutando y está elevándose ya un poco a desacoplarse del concepto de reciclaje. Eso es algo que se está haciendo acá muy fuerte para poder entender que existen un montón de estrategias que se pueden realizar antes de pensar en el reciclaje, porque la idea, ¿no es cierto?, es disminuir el consumo y extraer la menor cantidad de materias primas posible, ¿no es cierto?, desacoplar el crecimiento económico de las materias primas. Eso es lo que se está proponiendo actualmente. Y desde el punto de vista económico, ¿no es cierto?, el desarrollo local, que eso lo hemos visto todo en el contexto de pandemia, ¿no es cierto?, donde ya le estamos comprando al vecino, al negocio local, porque ya no podemos esperar que llegue un producto de muy lejos, ¿no es cierto? Entonces eso está fomentando desde el punto de vista social, ambiental, ¿no es cierto?, y obviamente en el ámbito de la salud y las relaciones con las personas, ¿no es cierto?, el crecimiento del consumo local. Por lo tanto, el mayor apoyo a los emprendimientos, que hace muy poco, hasta el año pasado, era muy difícil emprender, y hoy en día es más fácil con todo esto de la cercanía, ¿no es cierto? Y de hecho, hay mucha gente que quedó desempleada y comenzó con sus emprendimientos, ¿no es cierto? Y eso está ligado directamente con el comercio justo, que comercio justo habla directamente de no el precio que pagamos como consumidores, sino cuáles son las prácticas que tenemos en toda la cadena de valor con las personas que trabajan en los productos que producimos, y está relacionado con la justicia social, por supuesto. Eso, muchas gracias.
Marcela, tremendo. Gracias por compartir toda esa información sobre el trabajo que están haciendo, pues que creo que es un trabajo un poco como, pareciera ser como un trabajo de mentoría también, de acompañar ese cambio tan urgente que se requiere en todos los ámbitos. Felicidades y gracias por compartirlo ahorita. Ahorita seguimos hablando un poco más al respecto. So John, it's your turn. Like I said, last but not least, I'm very excited to see your work, and it's all yours. Go ahead.
All right, one moment. Here we go. Can you see my screen? Is that up?
It's up. Yes.
Okay. Here we go. Okay. I think I need to remove this. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is John Johnson, and I am the co-founder of the Inner City Green Team. Well, the Inner City Green Team is essentially what we try to do is help protect the environment and transform the lives of New York City Housing Authority residents through improved recycling, education, job training, and paid work that can lead to a lifetime of employment and civic engagement. And towards that end, we're working to create an effective, replicable, and sustainable recycling infrastructure at NYCHA with job creation and community revitalization at its core. Now, you need to get a good sense of what the New York City Housing Authority is really all about. It's the largest low-income housing provider in New York City, and it's the largest public housing authority in North America. It was created about 100 years ago to provide affordable low-income and housing for New Yorkers. It's comprised of 326 developments, 2,550 buildings, and it consists of 178,000 apartments. Over 500,000 residents call NYCHA home, and that's roughly 1 out of every 15 New Yorkers. And if NYCHA were a city of its own, it would be the country's 32nd to most populous city. That's bigger than Atlanta or Miami. So we're talking about a city within a city. And it would also be one of the country's poorest cities. Approximately 58% of the residents are African American and Latino. And as you can see on the upper left-hand screen side of your screen, that's the sort of distribution of NYCHA developments throughout the city. And that picture that you see of all those buildings is just one development in Queens. It's actually the largest development in the city. It has about almost 4,000 units and about 7,000 people live there in one small community. Well, the thing about NYCHA is that it hasn't had recycling since it became a law in New York City in 1989. That's when they passed the law. So NYCHA residents essentially were left without the opportunity to recycle in their buildings. And while other neighborhoods were recycling nearly a third of their trash, NYCHA buildings were recycling virtually none. That's my partner there, Bridget Vicente. She's a lifelong NYCHA resident. And as you can see, all the way back in 2013, when we were working on a story with the New York Times, we were still seeking help to try to figure out, look, how can you leave this population, a city within a city, out of the mix with respect to, sustainability. So basically, we had to essentially file a lawsuit against the city and the New York City Housing Authority to get them to come into compliance with the law. And they did. And shortly thereafter, in 2015, that same year that we were really kind of beating down the doors, the city put in what they call NYCHA Recycles. This is their recycling program. And basically included installing these sort of communal recycling bins outside between clusters of buildings. It was just basically a rush to come into compliance with the law. And they just hastily put in these recycling bins. And as you can see there, they're basically used as garbage cans because residents are more apt to use the trash chute on their floor than to take the elevator down and walk their recycling outside. And currently only about 1.5% of NYCHA's recyclables are captured through the existing program. And just to give you some sense of perspective on that, New York City's average capture rate for recyclables is approximately 18%. So we're way behind where we should be. And New York City as a whole is only recycles half of what it can. Now, let me just give you a sense of what's in the waste of a typical sort of NYCHA community. They produce about 20% more waste than the citywide average. And overall, residents generate 400 million pounds of waste a year. And approximately a third, or 133 million pounds of that household waste can be recycled. As you can see in that pie chart there, just to give you a sense of, the sort of percentage of what's in typical NYCHA waste. 19% is metals, glass, plastics, and beverage cartons. That's materials that we recycle in New York City. And approximately 14% clean paper and cardboard. And as you can see, there's another third, which is organics. The city does have an organics program. They don't collect at NYCHA developments. And there's some other programs. We have an electronics program. We also have a textiles program where we collect, and they don't do that at these NYCHA developments either. But one of the first things we wanted to focus on with the Inner City Green Team is how can we get more NYCHA residents to recycle. Now, where does New York City's garbage go? Given that almost all of NYCHA recyclables are thrown in with the trash and transported to incinerators and distant landfills at great cost to the city and environment. As you can see, that red X, that's where New York City is. And since 2001, we closed our last landfill in the city. And now we export all of our trash upstate New York to other states in the country. Pennsylvania receives a bulk of it, Ohio, Virginia, the KY is Kentucky, and it goes as far down and south as South Carolina. That's where you see the SC. And this costs overall exporting the city's trash $420 million a year. And that's just not sustainable. We have to figure out a better way. And what we decided to start with is, why aren't we really including NYCHA residents in this mix? So the city had a problem. They figured, look, NYCHA is not recycling. What can we do? So they put together this international competition. It was called the NYCX Collab Challenge, Zero Waste in a Shared Space. And that was in 2017. And they looked for solutions to see how they can improve recycling at NYCHA, and also reduce the amount of time that NYCHA employees spend dealing with waste. NYCHA generates a tremendous amount of waste, and the workers are overwhelmed with it. In fact, they spend about 60% of their time just dealing with waste. And if anyone knows anything about the New York City Public Housing Authority, it's riddled with problems, from mold to asbestos to lead. And the maintenance workers have their hands filled with other responsibilities. And one of the things that we're trying to do is reduce the amount of time that they're working dealing with this, managing waste. So we put together a proposal and we won. And it was for a 6-month pilot to test our iRecycle program. And we have a service delivery approach that provides residents with the most convenient, accessible, and engaging experience with recycling. We tie together education, convenience in the form of a door-to-door pickup service, and the use of data and rewards to affect behavior change. Additionally, our model focuses on scaling the service in a way that provides green leadership, skill building, and jobs for NYCHA residents. And that picture there is of us accepting the award. And that was a great day. But the big thing about our program is jobs. NYCHA residents have some of the highest unemployment rates in the city and are in critical need of jobs, with 56% of all working age residents not reporting income from employment. And there's about, according to some estimates, as many as 100,000 residents are without jobs. Our mission is to help them attain the skills and build competence to find and keep a job. And when we fully implement our program, we estimate we can create 1,200 sustainable living wage green collar jobs for NYCHA residents. Now, this is basically our service. It's pretty simple. It's a convenient service with a purpose. And basically, we don't allow, residents don't have to go outside in inclement weather and sometimes potentially dangerous situations just to recycle. For those of you who aren't familiar with NYCHA developments, many of them are some of the most dangerous communities in the country. And it also provides access to a very large senior population at NYCHA, as well as other residents who have mobility issues. Folks just don't really want to go out to far off bins to recycle, and it's not working. So basically what we do, we train residents on proper recycling practices and give them a blue and green recycling bag station to sort and store their recyclables in preparation for a weekly collection. On designated days and within a specific window of time, residents place their recyclables in the hallway next to their front door. And the recyclables are collected and the bags are hung back on the doorknob once empty. Residents' participation is checked and the materials are weighed and metrics are recorded. So it's a simple, straightforward process. It's just actually bringing the service to the people in a way that's, that they can find it a lot more accessible than what the city did in a rush to come into compliance with the law. Basically, we did it at the Brownsville houses, that's public housing development in Brooklyn. The pilot ran for basically 6 months. Really, we got started only 4 months after everything was said and done. But in Brownsville houses, it's about a population of a little over 3,000. We have 1,300 apartment units in 27 buildings, and there's only 9 recycling bins that the city put in. And as you can see on the upper right-hand corner, where you see the orange square, That's the Brownsville houses. Again, there's 27 buildings, and if you can see scattered about those buildings, there's 9 green dots, and that represents the recycling bins that the city put in for over 3,000 people. They could fill that literally in half a day if they actually started to recycle. But again, those bins aren't being used, and we decided, let's figure out a way to do it. So we joined forces with Green City Force, and this is a program that engages young adults from NYCHA in service related to improving the environment at NYCHA and prepares them for careers in sustainability. So it's a good partnership. In fact, the founder of that organization is also an Eco Green Fellow. These core members provided support with outreach, education, and collection. We transported the materials around in a low carbon way on bikes. And we used a real sort of human-centered approach to this to really engage the community and, bring folks into this opportunity such that they can create jobs for them as well. We also did a monthly newsletter. This is our collab newsletter that really sort of encouraged participation with residents, with giving them information to actually see their progress. And we highlighted individuals and collective efforts to show that people in the community do care. And we actually offered incentives, including inter-building competitions, where we gave away gifts, cards, and cash prizes. Even we gave away fresh produce, because this and many other NYCHA communities are what we call food deserts, where there are really no fresh, healthy options for the people in those communities to eat. Now, one of the interesting things that we really wanted to stay on was a lot of folks said one thing that with respect to recycling, what would help them, do a better job of it was convenience. And we did a survey, and over 60% of the residents said, besides anything else, we would like to have this to be a convenient program. It's not that folks don't want to do it, but if it's easier, that'll be better. And another thing that we said, how can we really incentivize this and really give back to the folks that's really trying to make a difference? So, as I said, we committed to the idea of having a rewards program that would incentivize participation and support NYCHA residents who engage in a more sustainable lifestyle. And this company is that we're partnering with is called Recycle Bank. And basically, they let residents earn points for recycling participation, education, training, and volunteering through an online mobile app. Now, this program was traditionally used in single-family homes and never used in apartment buildings. And the reason being is that with Recycle Bank, they weigh the recyclables. When the truck comes, they have an arm that weighs the material, and then they give points to that individual household. But in a multi-family building like NYCHA apartments, there's no way that anyone can try to track participation or weigh their materials. In this case, we do. And that really sort of makes us sort of very innovative in that we can actually sort of see who's doing what and measure that and actually give these points to individuals. And according to Recycle Bank, an average recycling household enrolled in their program can save $10 to $15 per month with grocery store rewards alone. So this would be a great benefit to many NYCHA residents who are some of the poorest in the city. In addition, NYCHA residents spend over $2 billion a year. Much of it is in the local neighborhood. And with this Recycle Bank program, given that most of the discounts and savings come from local businesses, this can be a stimulus to local businesses, as approximately 50% of the program awards are redeemed locally. So folks are buying back into the community. They're spending money in their community. We're working with businesses to develop these discounts and savings, so these residents, one, can benefit from this program, and two, that we can stimulate the local economy. See, and that picture there is basically what you see is we have a scanner, a barcode on the door. We register the residents' participation. We weigh the materials, ultimately in the end, and they all get points that they can again redeem for discounts and savings in local businesses. So the pilot, it showed the tremendous results. Now, basically, we really had 4 months. That's essentially 120 days to really ramp this project up to show that NYCHA residents do and want to recycle. And we went from roughly 2% of households to 8%, with the highest participation rates, about 50% of the people in the buildings recycling. Again, this is essentially starting from zero. Over 300 residents were enrolled in the program, and almost 8 tons of recyclables were diverted from the waste stream during the pilot. And we ran it for an additional 6 or 7 months just on crowdfunding. And we captured an additional 15 tons after that point because people didn't want to see it go away. So now we're working with the city to say, hey, we did the pilot, we won, and we're looking at how can we scale this up. And basically the idea that unfortunately a lot of people had about NYCHA residents is that, well, you know, they don't really care about these issues of sustainability. They're poor folks, they have more priorities. So the city sort of just put this idea of having this city within a city, you know, enter into this sort of process of participating in sort of making New York City a much sustainable city. Now, one of the things that New York City is really working on is trying to send zero waste to landfills by 2030. And without the participation of NYCHA residents, that's virtually impossible. Now, the success of the POT program illustrates that when recycling is made more convenient, NYCHA residents will in fact recycle, and it can have a positive impact on their lives, the city, and planet. It also showed that NYCHA residents do care about recycling and are interested in these ideas of sustainability. They just need information and access to a program that works for them. It's a win-win for everyone. And the sheer scale of NYCHA means that a program like this, when fully implemented, will not only have a positive impact on NYCHA communities, where it's desperately needed, but also on the city and environment. Our program will create 1,200 sustainable green-collar jobs for residents, divert over 133 million pounds of recyclables from incinerators and landfill each year, save New York City annually over $10 million in export costs. That's how much it costs just to take NYCHA's, those recyclables that generated at NYCHA unnecessarily to landfills and incinerators, $10 million. That could be pumped back into the local community. We can eliminate unnecessary truck trips to landfill, reducing New York City's carbon footprint each year by almost 200,000 metric tons of CO2. That's equivalent to taking out 200,000 cars off the road every year. We can save NYCHA residents money, which is very important for this population, and we can stimulate the local economy in some of our poorest communities. So this combination of convenience, jobs, saving New York City tax dollars, the environmental benefits and discounts for some of our most cash-strapped citizens makes this recycling program a win-win for everyone. Thanks. I'm looking forward to talking to you about this more.
Thank you, John. It's inspiring, really. It makes me, while you were presenting, I was thinking a lot about a lot of things, like you're nudging your way into recycling with the community. It's impressive, and how you're making the community getting involved and use their own strength to really transform their lives through the program of recycling, with not only changing their own possibility to have access to new jobs, but generating a healthier and balanced lifestyle as well. It's really, really a positive cycle that you have created there, and it's very, very impressive. Thanks for sharing. Mm-hmm. So I want to go ahead. We have 25 more minutes to exchange, and I want to go ahead and, taking into account that we have fresh the 3 presentations that you shared with us, I want to go back and ask a specific question to each of you from your presentation and from your work, and then go ahead and share joint questions for everyone that we can all share and discuss. And feel free, please, to intervene if you want to add something that someone else is contributing. Just the more we discuss, the more we learn. So first of all, I'm going to start with Sritri and keeping our order there. And I was thinking while you were presenting how like the strength that you need to be pushing these innovative programs in a more traditional based sector, and what it implicates for you to work in a systemic way. What are the challenges for you to be able to really push forward what you're doing and being able to bring other actors from public or private sector toward your program and your project? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, thanks for that question, Maria. So yeah, it's definitely like construction is not an industry, not just in India, but globally, that is known for innovation happening every other year around. like we are all used to living in a certain way in our part of the world for decades. So when you come up with a new technology and a new material, it's the biggest challenge is to make a headway on a behavioral level with the consumer and the government, where it's, you know, even when you tell them the same thing, that it's fireproof, it's waterproof, it's just like, oh, but I'm so used to using wood for, you know, 100 years or concrete for 200 years. How do I switch? Which is where, as you mentioned in your introduction, it's so important to collaborate, because definitely not one company or one organization can do it alone. So from the very start, we try to have a lot of implementation partners with us in terms of foundations, NGOs, government bodies, and we try to push it through them instead of us being the face of the, you know, the solution, so that they are talking to someone who has implemented something else and they have the trust of the community, so that it's easier for, let's say, a school being built in a village, because the head of the village is telling people that we should do this. Then me coming from city, a founder of an organization who has no, you know, that emotional connect with the community. So we were very clear that we need to collaborate. We cannot do work in silos. And lastly, it's also like the building code. So this is on a slightly technical level, but whether it's the US, Europe, or India, whenever we introduce a new building material, the existing building code has to also get updated in that part of the world, which is a very slow process, not just in India. So we are working with the government, the testing bodies, to make sure that, you know, the sooner we can get their manual to be aligned to what we are saying, hopefully for the end user, it'll be easier to make the switch. It'll be easier for an architect to endorse this project, and then for someone who's building their house to use this versus a traditional brick as a material.
Thank you, Shitri. So it's really a systemic approach, and leading the efforts on all fronts. And I hear from what John shared with us, and with your job, is getting the community involved and getting those champions involved onto promoting a faster change that we need. And with that, I want to address Marcela as well, because with what you shared with us, I take, and I mentioned earlier, it seems to me that you are on a mentorship role with your work, to lead people, to raise awareness on what's going to happen, what are the trends, what's coming, how the different paradigms in consumption are changing, and what really organizations and education need to take into account to really being able to have a more sustainable future. And I was, while you were sharing with us, it made me think, when you were showing us the pictures of children and the educational programs, and it seems, of course, children are it's very important to teach them, and they also teach us a lot, because it seems like there's a difference in generations, like younger people and children are more aware of taking care of our planet now. But how does it look like for you when you have to go to an older leader, or to work with people who are not so aware of the sustainable lifestyle and the impact on sustainability that their life and their economic activity takes place? How do you talk to them? How do you convince them, and where do we start? Where do we start by convincing and promoting people that are more traditional to change and contribute in this matter?
Tal como hemos conversado, aquí el concepto de sistema ha aparecido en diferentes ocasiones. Entonces, como vivimos interconectados, ¿no es cierto? Porque todos nosotros mismos somos sistemas y nos relacionamos en un sistema social, ¿no es cierto?, que está vinculado además con los impactos sociales, ambientales y económicos. Lo que hacemos nosotras es, entendiendo que, claro, que como tú dices, los niños y las niñas están más sensibilizados, manejan más información. O sea, tú ahora ya, si ves dibujos animados de que son hechos a partir del 2015, ya ves que las temáticas tratadas en esos guiones hablan de cambio climático, de adaptación, ¿no es cierto?, de compartir, de relacionarse con la tierra, etc. Entonces los niños ya están un poco más sensibilizados. con los adultos lo que hacemos es trabajar levantando información para extraer diferentes insights y entender y comprender qué moviliza a cada persona, ¿ya? Entonces van a haber personas que les moviliza el ahorro económico, porque ser sustentable finalmente es ser más eficiente, ¿no es cierto? Y se perciben ahorros económicos, lo hemos visto acá en las presentaciones también. Hay otras personas que les va a movilizar más qué va a pasar, el futuro, qué va a pasar con sus hijos y sus hijas. Cuando tú les dices que el 2050 tu hijo o tu hija, lo más probable, podría eventualmente pasar que no pueda salir a jugar al patio, ¿ya? Y que además a los niños que son pequeños ahora, tienes que empezar a prepararlos para la adaptación al cambio climático, que ya no tiene vuelta atrás, ¿no es cierto? Entonces, a otras personas les interesa más la huella de carbono. Hay otras personas que están más preocupadas de la alimentación. Hay otras personas que les mueve más la movilidad sustentable, ¿ya? Entonces, tú vas extrayendo información y a partir de lo que más le interesa a ese grupo de personas o a esas personas de manera individual, tú vas generando un relato que se adapta y que tiene un sentido para ellos, ¿ya? Es decir, tú no vas a decirle que el oso polar se está extinguiendo, ¿no es cierto? Porque hay mucha gente que no lo conecta, porque el cambio climático es algo etéreo, no existe, es algo que hay que pensar en el futuro, ¿no es cierto? O sea, a mí me ha pasado en redes sociales, gente que me comenta y que he dicho frente a un argumento que no me importa, mis hijos se harán cargo de eso cuando crezcan. Frente a ese tipo de argumentos, ¿tú qué vas a decir? No, una persona que está desconectada, digamos, de la realidad. Entonces, claro, primero es eso, es identificar qué moviliza a cada persona, qué le mueve, cuál es el propósito, qué le da sentido, porque finalmente siempre vas a encontrar un tema que conecte con la sustentabilidad, con los impactos, con las huellas, con el cambio climático, hacia lo que a ellos más les interesa.
Muy interesante, Marcela. Me gusta mucho que nos hubieras compartido como esa lógica de aproximación e intervención con estos públicos, y me hace pensar que al final todas estas posibilidades generan una relación gana-gana. O sea, identificar lo que le llega al corazón a cada persona y generar esa narrativa al final, siendo flexible desde ahí, impacta positivamente en el territorio. Y a eso le quiero agregar también que al final para los negocios también es un buen negocio la economía circular. Hay una gran posibilidad de crecimiento en términos económicos también para las empresas que de pronto, o los líderes que están de pronto en un ámbito más tradicional, pensando, bueno, si valdrá la pena en términos económicos, y creo que eso también es otro de los puntos que para muchas personas puede ser importante, y también ahí están todos los puntos de que hacer el bien va a generar una acción positiva también sobre el planeta. Entonces,
ahí se hace lo mismo.
Gracias por compartirnos.
Perdona, tú trabajas con las empresas y claro, tú identificas qué es lo que requiere la empresa. Muchas veces la economía circular va a significar eficiencia en costo, en ahorro de recursos, ¿no es cierto? En conectarse con otras, poder acceder a una certificación. Hay diferentes motivos. Lo mismo ocurre con el Estado. Chile, por ejemplo, que entró a ser parte de la OECD hace unos años, tuvo que empezar a implementar toda una política ambiental, digamos, para alinearse, y actualmente estamos desarrollando la hoja de ruta de economía circular que plantea cómo Chile va a transitar hacia un modelo económico circular de aquí al 2040. Y eso se está haciendo de una manera multisectorial, con diferentes actores que estamos opinando y diciendo qué es lo que se debe reconocer e incorporar en esta hoja de ruta. Y por otro lado, como les mencioné, el concepto de consumo circular es el que nosotros trabajamos para poder hacer que las personas, porque finalmente si las empresas hacen acciones de economía circular y el Estado está regulando, ¿no es cierto?, a través de políticas públicas, la manera de cómo hacemos que las personas finalmente se sumen. Y ahí yo nos estaba mostrando un poco de los incentivos que ellos realizan en Nueva York, ¿no es cierto?, pero además cómo se genera un cambio cultural para que las personas cambien efectivamente, lo sumen, lo normalicen y no tengan que estar recibiendo un incentivo necesariamente o tengan que entender que hay que hacerlo porque así como compras, como decides comprar, tienes que tomar la decisión de que tienes que hacerse cargo de ese residuo, ¿ya? Porque es parte de cerrar el círculo.
Así es. Gracias, Marcela. Yo quiero excusarme, estoy sintiendo que de pronto mi conexión no está en su mejor estado. Espero que me puedan escuchar bien. I'm going to turn to John and a specific question for you. It's hard to not try to bring your experience and think about what it would mean in terms of an economy such as the Colombian economy. We are a very informal economy. About roughly half and half of the economy are formal jobs, and the rest are informal economy, who of course are people who are more vulnerable to their own development and access to different services. And I was discussing a couple of months ago with a friend talking about circular economy, and we were discussing how circular economy could generate a positive impact on the fact that the informal jobs could turn into formal or more dignified jobs. And he shared with me a thought saying that the fact that our informal economy is very based on the different skills that people have, crafts, the different chores that people do to generate an income, can provide an opportunity to really scale up and generate networks and address a more dignified and address the generation of formal jobs through circular economy. And I see that you are contributing tremendously to your community in New York City, to a community that perhaps is similar to the one that I'm just describing. And what are your thoughts on that? What are your, it's admiring the contribution that you're doing on jobs and on the planet, of course, but what are your thoughts on this idea of how to contribute in terms of this fund? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, contribution is regarding, NYCHA residents is gaining sort of access into that closed loop. Where's the entry point? There was no entry point for NYCHA residents, unfortunately. And, creating jobs where, we see opportunity there. So, well, how do we really engage people? And what do people really want from this community? And one thing sort of Marcela mentioned was, sort of engaging people, meeting them where they are. What is it that we can do to sort of encourage them to say, what's the issue regarding the environment? How do you see it? Where do you find your place in this? And many NYCHA residents, you live in this dense urban environment, with their very little trees or grass, and they don't see themselves as really contributing to the larger picture. The whole idea of sustainability is really sort of not on their radar screen. But what triggers or what things can we, or hot buttons can we press that says what really matters to you? Jobs were a big issue for folks. What is it, what's in this for me? People really asked. So we provided incentives to say this is something important. And how can we really involve folks in this sort of circular economy and really see that it's real potential there? How much money do we waste shipping this material to far off landfills? $10 million. All the other impacts that we as a community can see our place in this. And one of the things that we're working on right now is this initiative called BEAM, B-E-A-M, that's Black and Brown Environmental Action Matters, to show that, our actions can really contribute to the overall goal of, maintaining a healthy planet. Whereas before, folks never could see where they would fit in. And now with this program, they sort of understand the impacts of their lack of recycling. And therefore it sort of energizes folks, and we can engage them on the level that says, well, yeah, you may not save the polar ice cap from melting, by, going and, stopping people from cutting down trees, but how can you stop folks from cutting down trees by recycling? So we sort of make those connections and then say there's money involved. If we have some of the poorest communities in the country here, right in the richest city in the country, how do we make people understand that this is something that we as a community can really capitalize on? And people are really starting to understand that and really sort of become more active in this program of saying it really matters. Not only are we looking at recyclables, a third of the waste that NYCHA residents generate is compostable material. And we're also looking at how do we collect that material and say, this is the, this trash can be turned into treasure for the community that needs it most. And people are really starting to understand that and really engage in this opportunity to say, I'm not into it to necessarily save the planet, but now that I'm into it and engaged in this to make money. I want to save money with these discounts. I want to see, my cousins, my brothers, myself get a job. And all of these sort of factors are floating around in people's heads that says this is value. It has real value. It's just unfortunate that the city of New York, we literally had to fight them to really bring this sort of marginalized community, to the forefront and see the benefits of them really participating in this sort of circular economy. So, the idea again is, well, what do we need? What triggers are there for people to really sort of engage in this idea of sustainability? Again, NYCHA has many problems, from crime to poverty to health effects. In fact, COVID really devastated this community. It was the hardest hit community in the city. And one of the things folks are really trying to look at, how do we really organize them around these issues? And, impact, what kind of impact can we have? And folks have really embraced this idea of recycling now, where they didn't before. And now the city is looking to really make major investments into how we can really scale this program up and really create these jobs and really bring this community, again, that was left out of the conversation back into it.
Great. Thank you, John. That gives us a lot of extra strength to go and pursue and trying to scale and learn from what you guys are doing there in New York City. We have one question that I want to share with all of you. We have 5 more minutes, so hopefully we'll have a chance to go through all of you to answer it. And it is this one. How would you describe a circular society? And what would be the role of citizens in this construction? How do you see this transition? And do you think we have time to see this transition happen? So let's start with Sri again.
Sure, thank you. If I could imagine a society, which is around circular economy, I think our thinking has to be in terms of circles. Then it has to be cyclic. For instance, from the morning when we get up and we drink our tea and coffee, to the phone that we use on a daily basis, everything that we consume has to be thought of in a circular fashion. From the moment it's designed to the moment we consume to the moment we throw it away and we get a new iPhone. It sounds like too much, but the basis of it is something that Marcela said earlier. We have to be conscious of what we are consuming. And that's only when circularity can really be embedded in our system. And then that would flow into the society and into the economic and the business models around us. So once we start doing that as consumers, the organizations, for-profit companies will have to be nudged. They'll have no other way but to move towards the circular business model, whether in fashion, construction, or any other sector, because that's what we need as consumers. So that's how I think of it, that we start thinking of everything in cycles from the moment we wake up. And once we start thinking, there's going to be organization designing products for us in that manner too.
Thank you, Sri. Marcela, what are your thoughts on this question?
Yo creo que lo que tú nos preguntas es lo que nosotras desarrollamos como consumo circular, ¿ya? Que es como el comportamiento que tenemos la ciudadanía, en realidad el que deberíamos eventualmente tener, y cómo se va a normalizar esto, si este es el desafío. ¿Cómo hacer que ciertos hábitos relacionados con no desperdiciar alimentos, programar compras, comprar solamente lo necesario, entender cuáles son los impactos que genera un producto en su ciclo de vida, que eso también nosotros lo enseñamos, es decir, preferir un producto local. Muchas veces la gente nos pregunta y nos dice, ¿cómo es un producto sustentable? O peor, comprar productos sustentables es muy caro, que también es un mito. Entonces cuando yo les digo, mira, basta con que consumas local, si te preocupas de dónde viene viajando ese producto, preocúpate de comprar productos locales. Entonces, hay muchas acciones que se pueden hacer, el reparar los productos, y ahí es cuando las empresas, y es el desafío que se le está planteando ahora a las empresas, que diseñen sus productos para que efectivamente sean reparables, y aparece el concepto de el derecho a reparación, ¿no es cierto? Que es algo que se está peleando también porque se perdió hace mucho tiempo. El tema de relacionarse con los alimentos, un huerto pequeñito en un departamento, en un balcón, también promueve la educación con respecto a la circularidad. Hay muchas cosas que se pueden hacer y que eventualmente, claro, si lo proyectamos los años, eventualmente debería ocurrir, pero esto tiene que ser a nivel multisectorial, ¿ya? Entonces, educación y alfabetización, le digo yo. O sea, cómo empezamos a meter estos temas que antiguamente eran normales, ¿cierto? La reparación, ¿no es cierto? Fabricar tus propias cosas y todo. Comprar local, la relación con el señor del local de la esquina, de tu barrio, ¿no es cierto? Que eso se había perdido también, que ahora se está recuperando. Y retomamos todas esas prácticas que no se hacían hace muchos años, se hacían hace 40 años, incluso 30, podemos decir, y retomarlas para que la sociedad vuelva a ese camino que tuvimos un pequeño desvío, ¿no es cierto?, por un modelo económico que nos sacó de donde íbamos y finalmente generó estos impactos gigantescos con los cuales nos encontramos actualmente, sino que hay que volver a aquello, ¿ya? Y en ese sentido las empresas tienen que transitar conjuntamente en ese camino, y el Estado también es esencial que regule con políticas públicas que acompañen aquello, porque si no, no se va a cambiar, ¿ya? Entonces eso finalmente es lo que hay que hacer cuando hablamos de consumo circular, es todas las acciones que podemos hacer nosotros como ciudadanos para apoyar este cambio y acceder a la información y conocimiento, que eso es algo que está ocurriendo hoy en día que la gente no sabe.
Muchas gracias, Marcela. Creo que es un mensaje muy interesante que nos compartes, y para empezar a cerrar, yo creo que ya estamos sobre el tiempo. Entonces, John, I'm going to give you the word to share your thoughts on this last question, and with that, I will wrap up the session.
I just say simply equity and inclusion and equal access into this circular economy for everyone, even those marginalized communities that have been traditionally left out of the conversation. You can't, be a part of the loop if you don't have access to it. And sort of, breaking down those barriers to entry, to enter into that circular economy. And that's what we're trying to do by including NYCHA residents in the mix. Whereas in, past years, they weren't even considered in sort of the waste counts in New York City, which is sort of put to the side. So if we can have equal access into that circular economy and participate and encourage folks through education and putting resources there where they weren't before, I think that's what a real, truly equitable and inclusive circular economy would look like. And that's what we're trying to achieve with our program.
Thank you, John, very much. And I think there's no need for a further conclusion on my side. These three final remarks from all of you were very conclusive and inspiring. I think it's a really clear call to action that everyone, thinkers, academics, private sector, public sector, policymakers need to take into account. So thank you for sharing with us these experiences, your time, and thank you to Low Carbon City and all of you watching. It's been a pleasure sharing with you this morning.
Yes, thank you too. Much appreciated for the opportunity.
Gracias.
Gracias.
María Luisa, muchas gracias.
Saludos.
Thank you very much, María Luisa, Shriti, John, Marcela, for your great input. And I think that as María Luisa already mentioned, we have a lot of important conclusions for this discussion. I just want to emphasize on the fact that circular economy is not only about technological innovation, which it is, and it is important, but John was very emphatic, I think, on the issue of social justice, right? On equity and how the circular economy is not only a technological problem, right? So we have, I think, a very clear picture of our own role. So I just want to thank you again for all the inputs that you delivered. So I'm gonna switch to Spanish now just to do a small wrap up and instructions for tomorrow. So bueno, les recordamos pues que este año nuestro foro hace parte de la Semana Mundial del Clima liderada por The Climate Group en Nueva York, con todos los eventos, pues más de 350 eventos alrededor del mundo, conectando personas y organizaciones que construyen un mejor futuro. Agradecer nuevamente a los patrocinadores, esto nunca está de más, a COMFAMA, a Ruta N, a todas las otras instituciones que han estado vinculadas para apoyar y para que este evento se lleve a cabo. También el Servicio de Intercambio Alemán, la Universidad Técnica de Berlín, Urbano Oasis, Proantioquia, Sistemas Inteligentes en Red, en fin, ¿cierto? Una gran lista de aliados que tenemos acá para que esto se lleve a cabo. Mañana seguimos con esta gran programación, pues hoy también los esperamos en un rato para que nos volvamos a encontrar. Mañana tendremos la sesión de desarrollo regenerativo a las 9 de la mañana y una muy importante, las voces de niñas y niños, a las 2 de la tarde. Entonces, bien planeadas esas agendas para que podamos seguir disfrutando de todas estas iniciativas que yo creo que inspiran y que nos hacen ver que el cambio es definitivamente algo posible. Nos vemos entonces esta tarde nuevamente. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.